back, guys. Okay, so back in the shop. What I haven't quite filled you guys in on yet is the fact that I decided to take on the task of disassembling my cam gears and cleaning them. Now, Subaru basically does not want you to take it apart and actually considers them a non-serviceable item. However, they're just put together with some simple screws and that's about it basically. Now, there are some other tricks to it, but for the most part, I figured, what the hell, right? These things cost $250 a gear, and you'll never know if they're dirty, especially if you like spin a bearing or something. Maybe you could take it apart and clean it. If you could clean it, then you could guarantee you got all the stuff out of it, inspect the rotor, inspect the housing, so on and so forth. So, off camera, the other day, I started pulling apart one of the exhaust ABCS gears. And I quickly found out that there is a little pin that aligns the rotor to the housing. And all of a sudden, I flip it over and the pin falls out. Shit, right? Well, I started looking at the other exhaust cam gear. And that one, the pin is like sideways. I'm like, great. So not only that, but I couldn't even get the exhaust ones apart. Now I started messing around with one of the intake ones and the intake came right apart. Was able to clean it, no big deal. But I decided on a build of this caliber, I'm not even gonna mess around with the exhaust. The pins are already broken, I can guarantee it. We just need to order some new exhaust gears. So, what I went ahead and did, they spent more money than I would have liked to admit at Subaru, and they showed up today. So I have one more intake gear that I'm gonna disassemble and clean and whatever. But I figured I'd take you guys along, and then hopefully we can get this motor timed. Once this motor is timed, guys, we're done. We're ready to start working on the car and get that sucker in there. So this one will probably be quick and short and brief. I don't know. We'll see how it all works out. But I wanted to at least show you guys a little bit of the process of these cam gears, and maybe you want to do it for yourself. But again, you likely won't be able to get the exhaust apart. 2, those pins could very well be broken on yours even. So inspect them when you pull them apart. You'll never know, because since these are oil controlled, it's just like any variable valve timing oil controlled deal. It uses oil pressure. So unfortunately, there's no way for these cam gears to send like an electrical signal back to the ECU. The ECU can send a signal to essentially, advance or retard, but these gears don't have the ability to send that back. So you would never know. You'd probably get some ABCS codes, maybe some cam gear codes, maybe some bank codes, I don't know. But this might save you some money and some time and maybe a couple headaches along the way. So let's just go ahead and break into this one. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. I really would. So other than that, let's just go ahead and get into this one. These bolts are special. These are not your standard Torx. They are what they call a Tamperproof 5-lobe T30 bit, which Company 23 sells them. You can get them on Amazon. I'll have them linked in the description below. But these big ones are an M8. The smaller ones are an M6. Let's see if I got a bigger one for you. These are the bigger ones. Unfortunately, I didn't have the tool when I started this process, so I had to drill them out, use a left-hand drill bit to get them out, which took me a little bit of time. But I'm just gonna go ahead and replace these with regular Allen hardware because why not? It's basically the same exact size. It's just this one head is a little bit different where it's like flanged almost. Whatever, no big deal. You cannot buy any of these parts from Subaru. So if you damage them or the O-ring that's on the inside of here, you're kind of SOL. So just a heads up, that is one precaution that you might have to do or take into account. So other than that, we'll go ahead and get all these bolts out. I'll get you guys set up and we'll do some investigation. Okay, so like I said, I've already got these other bolts out. In this case, I just have a screwdriver that's like the perfect size. And basically from here, this outer portion should come off. We'll go ahead and clean this too. But this is the part that we're after. So there's gonna be these little areas like right here. You can kind of see how it has like a little slit there. This is where we're gonna put a screwdriver in and pry it. Now just be very careful that the screwdriver doesn't slip because there's an O-ring right inside here, and if you damage this O-ring, you're screwed. So I just barely stick it in and turn it sideways instead of stabbing it in. And just like that, there's our O-ring. Now, next order of business is inside here, which you can see like up here in the corner is pretty dirty. There's a little bit in there, but you see all these little tan looking things? These are actually like springed bushings. So we're gonna get a pick and we're just gonna pick these guys out so we can get the rotor out. Otherwise, you can just basically flip it upside down if you want to clean it all up and just push them out like that. Now these, no big deal. If the spring comes out, we can go ahead and fix out anytime. We will go ahead and clean those up as well. Now you can see that there's actually some gunk and stuff right up here where the plunger or this what sucks up the oil, which is this guy right here. It's like a little plunger piece. So let's go ahead and get all this cleaned up, all the oil out and everything. We'll get the rotor here cleaned up, and we're gonna try and flush some oil through this rotor here to get any contaminated oil out. Now, these cam gears were not on a motor that had a spun bearing or anything like that. So that's not what I'm worried about. I'm just worried about my 1200 horsepower engine, right? See, definitely some dirty oil. Would the motor have lived? Probably. For the most part, the rotors are all cleaned up. Now we can focus on this guy. and clean. We got this guy all nice and clean as well. To be honest, this one really wasn't that bad. Neither was the other one either, but these all look good. The springs all look good. Minimal wear. There's like a little wear mark on it. You can kind of see that little silver mark there. No big deal on that. I don't think those are gonna go out anytime soon. Okay, next piece of business is we have some brand new oil here. Basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus on this little hole right here and this bigger hole right here, right where this plunger piece is. Because not only can you see the plunger inside that, you see it moving, but this bottom hole is like a release. So we're gonna dip this in the oil, try and suck some of it up, and basically just flush out the gear itself. Which you can see here. See how there's a bunch of oil and stuff running out? I'll show you again. All the other oil passages look pretty good. So, go ahead, call that good. Didn't see anything alarming like whatsoever. The other intake gear I saw a lot more, but this guy seems to be pretty good. There's definitely some wear marks, but I feel like that's all pretty normal. No cause for alarm. However, I'm just gonna say right now, Harbor Freight gloves suck. I already ripped a hole in the finger. Dumb. Even though I banged on it a little bit, it still is pretty free in there. I can feel it. Still, you can still hear it. So, didn't hurt it or anything like that. Now we'll go ahead and just put a little bit of oil down in there. And basically what we're gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna put some oil on the top parts of the rotor. Pretty much everywhere an O-ring is not gonna be. Go ahead and take our O-ring here. Clean any contaminants or anything off of it. Now, there's gonna be this little like stepped mark here. The O-ring that has this little piece here is gonna fit right inside that. And we'll go ahead and just press it in there. Get it to sit nice and flush. Now, the other part here is there's an alignment pin on this guy right here. And there's gonna be this galley here and this little hole right here. This galley and this little hole need to line up together. But before we do that, we're gonna take these guys and these little springs here. So on this guy, you can kind of see there's like a little chunk missing out of it almost, it looks like. It's like a little rectangle piece is missing. There's like 2 tabs. And then on this side is completely square. What you want is, you want this, the two tabs facing inwards from the outside in, and you want the 2 tabs on this side, on the up side. So full square goes down in, 2 tabs to the inside. So we'll put our little spring on there, grab a little bit of oil, put it on there, and then slide that guy down in there. Just like that. Now you can see what I'm talking about. How the 2 tabs are up and facing inwards. So this guy to this little hole and on the alignment pin. We're gonna go ahead and take our stainless M6x1 and M8x1.25 Allen hardware we got from Ace, and go ahead and stick these guys in. And then you can go ahead and sink these guys down. It really does help if you have an old camshaft or something, or you can stick it on a camshaft, put it in its actual alignment position, and just make sure that there's no real play in it back and forth before you actually cinch them down, just to make sure that it's aligned properly. I would see how it would be pretty hard to have it not be aligned when you have an actual pin here on the intake ones that essentially align it. I think they're even on the exhaust too, but because the exhaust is a little bit harder to get apart, I have a feeling that that one, the alignment is probably much more important than the intake. And essentially what I would be doing is I'm like looking at where the bolt is sitting side to side in its hole and making sure that the little divots and whatnot are pretty equidistant on both sides. I know that's probably a terrible way to do it, but if you look at it how it's assembled before you take it apart, it would look very similar as well. So I can't imagine it's much different, especially because that rotor is in a fixed position. It can't move unless it's under oil pressure. So the only thing that could be different is this actual housing here and how it sits on the rotor. Okay, so from here, there is a torque value. The bigger bolts, the M8s, are gonna be 15 foot-pounds. These little guys here are gonna be 3.75 foot-pounds or 45 inch-pounds. So we'll go ahead and get these torqued, and these are ready to get slapped on the motor. I do have right here our new exhaust